So I'm Beth Rolstad. I'm the Executive Director of Homeward Pikes Peak, and I've been in this role for a little over 5 years. Homeward Pikes Peak is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, and we originally started as a convening organization to address the homelessness in southern Colorado, is how our founding documents were describing the issue. And over time, Homeward Pikes Peak Board of Directors and staff identified gaps in services for individuals experiencing homelessness and individuals with addictions. So we began adding programs, and we helped facilitate the creation of programs to meet those needs. So now we have 5 housing programs, a street outreach program, and an outpatient treatment clinic. And we have 2 new programs that are under development that will launch later this year. And the housing programs are unique in that 2 of them are sober living, transitional housing, 1 program for men and 1 program for women. The women's program can be unaccompanied women, so single women who may or may not have children, and then women who do have a baby in their care. So we have the women living in a house, a home environment where they share. There are women in the basement or the bottom bedrooms that do not have children, and then we have moms upstairs that have infants and toddlers. So we have a variety of programs. The other 3 kinds of housing programs are called permanent supportive housing. They provide long-term supported housing for individuals who've experienced chronic homelessness. And chronic homelessness is someone who has been homeless for 12 months in a row, or who has experienced 12 months over 3 years. What we actually find is clients who are entering that program have experienced much longer homelessness over time. It's been sporadic, a lot connected to their ability to earn a wage and to afford housing. And access to affordable housing is the largest cause that we find of homelessness in the community. So we serve approximately 115 individuals, households in the permanent supportive housing program, and approximately 30 in our sober living transitional housing program. It keeps getting worse, and it is a problem for everyone across the whole continuum who needs housing. You know, we have young professionals who move here, and they're forced to look at market rate apartments. 1-bedroom apartments now average $1,400 a month. And if you're a young professional and, you know, in your 30s, and maybe your first job is somewhere between $35,000 and $45,000, you're still spending above 30% of your take-home pay for your housing, which would call that household cost burdened. So housing is a real challenge. So Homeward Pikes Peak was founded by the Alpamar Foundation and Pikes Peak United Way when there was this blue ribbon panel started by the mayor of Colorado Springs back in 1998 to delve into the causes of homelessness and what kind of services were needed in the Colorado Springs and the broader community. So Homeward Pikes Peak came out of 2 years of community convenings of stakeholders, everywhere from elected officials, county commissioners, city councils, to council of neighborhood organizations, to hospital staff, and addictions counselors. I mean, I've seen the list of, and there's names that you would recognize today who were involved in those planning meetings. And it really said that there needs to be an organization that is continuously monitoring and working to address homelessness. And that was Homeward Pikes Peak. And we really did that role for our first 6 years before we even started direct service programs. We became the Pikes Peak Continuum of Care. So we oversaw the acquisition of HUD funding coming into the community and the disbursement to grantee agencies. And that role shifted out of Homeward Pikes Peak hands in about 2012 and went to United Way, and now it's shifted again to community health partnerships. So I'm really proud that Homeward Pikes Peak was part of this bringing an essential group and essential funding this community. I forget the data, but like for every million of HUD funding that comes into the continuum of care, I believe it's $3 million of additional funding is generated to support programs that provide housing for the homeless. So we are an adult serving organization. We help individuals over the age of 18, but I'm really going to think that the beginning age tends to be a little older, about 25 years old, and then up the whole age range. We have seniors who are aging in place, who have experienced homelessness, and they may be our client in the permanent supportive housing program until they pass away due to natural causes. That's an interesting kind of fact about individuals who are experiencing homelessness, is that their morbidity rate is much higher than the general public. In fact, the average lifespan of someone who's experienced chronic homelessness is about 65 years old, whereas the average American citizen, I believe, is 72 or something, 78. I can't quite remember, but it's much older. Our case managers have to face the reality that a couple times a year a client dies, and it often is due to natural causes related to poor health, and maybe once a year we have someone who relapses and overdoses and dies, and that's more in our broader programs because we do that substance abuse treatment, and it's always a tragedy. And actually just last year our staff created a memorial system for us to track those clients that have passed, and to create we have a little shadow box now that we've created to honor those former clients that have died under our care. That is where we have carved out our niche, is understanding addictions and understanding mental illness, severe mental illness. So in our permanent supportive housing program, that's who we focus those rental assistance vouchers for, because there are other agencies in the community that do different kinds of rental assistance. We have case management staff that are assigned to every household we serve, and they would meet weekly or more frequently with the household if they have needs. We tend to help connect the household to basic services. So they might need help connecting with a doctor and medical appointments. We'll provide transportation. We'll help the client set up Medicaid funded transportation assistance, or they need to know where the food banks are because they need support for their family food budget. So we might transport to a food pantry, or get them connected to a way to do that on their own. Sometimes it's reapplying or applying for public benefits. So we'll go up to the Department of Human Services up on Garden of the Gods Road, and we will help clients, apply for food stamps or something. These are all things that we consider really essential to navigate the supportive services to keep people stable and living out in the community, because that way we reduce their recidivism back to homelessness and back to emergency shelters or sleeping on the streets. So our street outreach program is one of the more innovative things that we do. So we partner with Colorado Springs Police Department's homeless outreach team. Twice a week we have 3 outreach workers that takes turns and go out with the police force hot team to reach individuals who are living outside or living in camps and trails. So one of the reasons we do that is that we want to be the trusted resource for that person to connect to the first steps to get into housing, which is an interview called the housing survey. And then the outreach workers are armed with knowledge of community resources, behavioral health care, physical health care, how to get food stamps, things like that. We'll invite clients to continue to meet with those outreach workers to apply for benefits even when they are living unhoused. And another thing that team has done is create an art therapy program. So we have an open studio program once a week at the Springs Rescue Mission, and we provide an opportunity for them to come in and make art. And what we find is that it's a great way for them to kind of do something different than just surviving, and also build a relationship with our outreach staff so that they might trust service providers again, because there's for people who've experiencing homelessness, there's a lot of disappointment in their life, and some of it is because the rules and regulations at which we provide services sometimes require them to participate in ways that they're not ready for, and sometimes it's because they're missing IDs and they're missing information that makes them eligible for programs, and those barriers can erode trust. So by doing this art therapy outreach program, we begin to rebuild trust in service providers, and then they apply, to get into housing. The challenge is that there are far more people who need housing than there are housing slots available. So the process takes a long time, and at least if we have some healthy engagement programs that they can do in the meantime, then we keep them involved in the whole process. Another program that we do is an outpatient treatment service. So we have 3 full-time clinicians who are trained in mental health and in substance abuse. So we provide individual counseling and group work, and clients can engage with the counselors here on site. During the pandemic, we learned how to do virtual telehealth, and so that is still an option for clients. We learned for some that transportation or even physically coming to the office is a barrier. So, it's kind of a silver lining of the pandemic is that we now provide telehealth for some clients. We have a program for veterans who've experienced long-term homelessness. We call it Veterans Housing First. And we have, I think, 18 households that are veteran specific. And we will assist anyone who had military service for even one day. Some veterans housing programs you have to be honorably discharged. And for us, we accept veteran of any discharge status. And we provide a case manager, and it's similar to the other permanent supportive housing program that the individual gets a housing voucher, we help them find an apartment in the community, and the lease is in the client's name, and then the case manager provides support. Right now, the veteran's case manager is a veteran himself, which is a really nice synergy in that he has more unique personal lived experience that he can relate back to the clients that we're serving. So Project Detour is the women's sober living program, where right now we have a house that can serve 9 women at a time, and we have 2 staff members that support those 9 women. One is an overnight support service, and one is a daytime case management. So we have a lot of support for the ladies who are there. They're voluntarily choosing to live in a sober environment, and we also hold them accountable to that choice by doing random drug tests, because we have clients there who may have more fragile recovery than someone else, and we don't want them to be triggered by another person slipping and using. So we have a relapse protocol where we coach individuals if they've relapsed, how they're going to return to the housing program and what they might do differently to stay in the housing program. The average length of stay with a woman who lives at Project Detour is about 9 months, and usually we can provide up to 12 months of housing. But we find that the women are usually leaving a little bit earlier because they're moving forward in their life goals. So they have secured new permanent housing, they have income to pay the rent, and they are maybe reuniting with family or a partner, and we've helped them identify what a healthy relationship is and what that might be successful on the other side. A lot of our women are reuniting with children, and they are moving out to also live with their family again. Sometimes that's in another program. It's like we become a stepping stone to maybe a participation in Partners in Housing or moving into a Grescio housing affordable unit. So we are really happy that we've helped someone find sobriety, enter long-term recovery, and then be able to be a good participant in another self-sufficiency program. This one is just from the other day, and that's the great thing, is that I have a lot of success stories to grab from. But this past Sunday, I was in King Soopers doing my personal grocery shopping, and I'm just standing in line, and I hear someone say, "Is that you, Beth?" And I look over, and it's a client who graduated from the Women's Sober Living Program over a year ago. And I was so thrilled that she recognized me, and she was beaming from ear to ear. She was smiling. And she's like, "Oh, I'm doing so well, let me tell you." And she pulls out her phone and shows me the trip that she had to the zoo that day with her daughter. And she's like, "I have my dream job, I have an apartment, and I couldn't have been here if it hadn't been for Homeward Pikes Peak." And I mean, it just warmed my heart. And the funny thing is that both of our groceries were being checked out by, two different employees, and both of those King Super employees were like, "Excuse me, miss, we gotta finish up here." But we were so busy talking and connecting because she was so happy, and it just was wonderful. I couldn't wait to come to work on Monday and talk to the staff and the case manager who knew her and tell her how well this client is doing. It's really wonderful, and I can think of this morning, I was coming in, and one of the Housing First case managers was with a client who just moved into housing last month. And when the client moved in, the case manager was, physically moving in goods into the apartment, and they had to leave to go do something. And the client just walked right out, and didn't lock the door or check things. And the case manager was like, "Come back," and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't had to lock a door or take care of my things in 10 years. That's how long this woman had been living outside and in unstable conditions. And 2 weeks ago, I was talking to that case manager, and she said, "Oh, I just happened to see my client, and she's so excited to be living inside again because now she gets to make beaded jewelry." And I was like, "Oh, really? That's the client's hobby?" That was my hobby. I have a ton of beads. I have things that I don't use anymore. Maybe I'll bring them in. So, again, this weekend when I was cleaning, I packed up a Ziploc bag of a bunch of old beaded stuff, jewelry and materials, and I brought it to work on Monday. Well, this morning when I was coming in, that client and the case manager were meeting, and they introduced me to the client that received my old stuff, and the client was so happy. I mean, she had tears in her eyes. She was thanking me for her having housing, and I was just like, all I do is write grants. All I do is help facilitate. You did the hard work. You have housing now. And she, was thanking me for housing and thanking me for beads so she could make jewelry, so she could do something creative again. And she's like, I never thought I'd be able to make jewelry again. And those are the things that warm my heart every day. So a great way to understand and to find out if they are eligible for services is to call Homeward Pikes Peak at 719-473-5557 and talk to our front desk. And, because we do have so many programs, there's a lot of different ways you might access some of our services. And then, if you're appropriate for one of the housing programs because you've experienced chronic homelessness, there actually are a lot of steps to go through, but we will walk you through those steps and see if we can help you connect to a housing resource. If you need outpatient treatment, it's really fast. We can get you in within 24 hours for an intake and an assessment and get you to see a counselor within 2 to 3 days. So we really have very low barrier to entry for that. If you don't know, what kind of services you need, we might connect you with a street outreach worker who knows about everything that we do, and they'll direct you the right way. We would not be able to deliver our services without partnerships. We work with direct referrals from the Springs Rescue Mission and Catholic Charities, even the housing programs that work with, people with higher incomes like Grescio or Partners. If they have a phone call from someone who is homeless, then they'll refer to us. Westside Cares is a huge partner. Tri-Lake Cares, Ithaca, ESM, ESM's closed. Family Promise, that's who I meant. So many partners work together to help individuals experiencing homelessness and individuals who have very low incomes. It's critical that we know each other's programs very well and refer back and forth to each other. We also have a partnership with Diversis Health. They help us receive funding from the state actually to deliver some of our services. We partnered with DBSA. We have made referrals for individuals to attend the support groups. We've partnered with NAMI to provide, support for family of loved ones with those with mental illness. It's critical. We have a lot of partnerships, and then we have a lot of partners that help fund us. So HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, is a partner. The Office of Behavioral Health, the City of Colorado Springs, the State of Colorado Division of Housing. We couldn't exist without that level of partnerships to deliver the services and housing that we provide. So we are building up a volunteer program that I hope is more involved soon. In the past, we have hosted mostly volunteers who are in school to learn social work or to become a counselor, and they serve as case manager interns with us, and that's been a great way. We've used volunteers at our monthly lunch for clients that we host on the first Thursday of every month. So if there is someone that wants to participate and just have lunch with clients, that's a great way to get involved. In-kind contributions help us help our clients. So we are on average moving about 3 households into housing every month, and then we have probably 3 to 5 transitional housing new clients every month. And the things that would make their lives easier would be like a laundry basket with laundry detergent, or something basic like a kitchen kit, like a dish detergent, set of sponges, and maybe some like cleanup spray. Little things like that are really outside of the budget of the clients we work with because they have such low income. And those things could cost someone less than $15, like on a grocery trip. If they wanted to drop off something like that, that would be fabulous. Also, things that are that we accept are small used household items, like if you are replacing your coffee pot or your microwave, or you have a new set of dishes, we would gladly take your older items, and those are great for us to help a client moving into new housing situation. We typically have one major fundraising event per year, and this year we're still trying to plan what that's going to look like for the fall. We have some community things that we'll be sharing in the near future. In July, we'll be opening a new residential treatment center for pregnant and parenting women, and that will be a big celebration. We'll have a ribbon cutting. What is unique about this is that it's the first residential treatment center for pregnant and parenting women in El Paso County. So if you are a woman who's pregnant and experiences an addiction, you have to go to Pueblo or Denver for treatment options if you want to bring your toddler with you, or if you are pregnant. There's nothing here in the community for you. So we're really excited about that, so stay tuned for details. And then the second thing that will be another celebration, in early December, we'll have the ribbon cutting for a new apartment building that's under construction called The Commons, and that's a 50-unit apartment building for homeless individuals, veterans, and families. And that's going to be really exciting because it's only the third project of a new apartment building for chronically homeless individuals in the community, and the first one that's going to serve homeless families. Oh, well, if I had a magic wand, I would acquire additional properties and make them available for transitional housing. I think that helping people get on their feet after experiencing homelessness takes time. We find people want to recover. They want to become sober. They want to address their mental health issues. But that takes time before you are really employable for a wage that will suffice to cover independent housing. And so In the meantime, there needs to be adequate transitional housing. And if I had a magic wand, I would be winning lotteries, getting millions of dollars, and buying more single family homes for transitional housing. I would be acquiring property to do like multi-unit, like small apartment buildings, and helping people get on their feet that way. I think that it's really important for us as humans to ask for help. I know that right now I'm currently, healthy in body and mind, and I have to remind myself that if I run into trouble, that it's okay to ask for help. And we have to teach our clients that it's okay to ask for help. There's shame in asking for help, but sometimes we need to remember that it's not a deficit, and that it is that there are people who want to provide help and resources, or even just a compassionate ear for listening. So I just want to encourage people that if you're listening and that you are struggling with housing stability, or you're struggling with addiction, or struggling with a mental health issue, there are supports out there, and just to call and ask for help.